Hey friends, welcome to a new video. Hope you all are doing well. Hope you've enjoyed a lot of the content that's happened over the previous weeks between Toylanta and vacations and competitions and all the things that we've had going on in our life. It's been quite a bit. It's been hectic. Things are out of order, but we're calming down. We're back from vacation and all of that, and I thought it was a good time to make this video. I saw that OG Geek very recently released his Toylanta video, which was very Mythic Legions focused. And so I think between Kent and Ron and Diamond Dave and OG Geek and Seth and my own, I think all of us have put our videos out, as well as many others that were at Toylanta. And one of the things I'm seeing in my comments and one of the things I'm seeing in my friends' comments are a lot of questions of, how do I collect this line? Like, those look cool. I've never seen Mythic Legions before, or when I looked them up, they're very expensive, or I can't figure out how to buy them, or what even are these? And I thought, since there was so much coverage of the Four Horsemen's booth being at Toylanta just a couple weeks ago for the first time being in the South, that it'd be a good time to make a video from my perspective about how do you collect this line. I have been collecting Mythic Legions about 5 years probably. So I bought the tribute figures, so Keltus and Adamon, which are the tribute to He-Man and Skeletor, as well as the Therion's Dozen, the birds, as they were released. So whenever that was, I think somewhere 2018 time frame. And my Mythic Legions collecting has evolved over the years. Times I had those. But then, you know, as we'll talk about, certain figures gain a lot of value. I traded actually some of my Mythic Legions to get several Hot Toys at one time. And then I had a bunch of Goblins and Dark Elves. And, you know, some things I've sold, some things I've kept, some things I've traded. Just like the rest of all of us that collect. But I've been collecting Mythic Legions for the better part of 5 years. Not the entirety that they've been out, but for quite a while. So I think longer than most of the people that I know, except for maybe Ron, Century the Mad Collector. So it's a line that I feel like I know a fair amount about, but I'm certainly not an expert. I will list other people that are going to be more experts than me. But I know for my audience, for the audience of like those of us in my group with OG Geek, Slap Happy Toys, Seth, all those folks, that this may be helpful to you. So I decided to make it. So let's start. We're talking about Mythic Legions, and when you talk about Mythic Legions, what you're actually talking about is Four Horsemen Studios. That's the company that produces Mythic Legions. So if you're talking about Marvel Legends, the company that produces them is Hasbro. If you're talking about WWE Elites, that's a Mattel product. The Four Horsemen Studios is who produces Mythic Legions. So who are the Four Horsemen? Are there actually four horsemen? Is that what it's talking about? And yes, there are four folks that were working as sculptors for McFarlane Toys back in the 90s, a long time ago. And they decided to branch off and form their own studio, the four of them. Three of those remain. One of them is no longer with the studio, but three of the original four are still with Four Horsemen Studios. So that's kind of a fun fact that currently working at Four Horsemen Studios, there are three horsemen. But they branched off from McFarlane Toys in the 90s to start an independent studio, and then they would partner. So you've probably encountered a lot of the stuff they've sculpted. Some of their best-known lines are Master Universe Classics, Motu Classics, a beloved line. Many people think it's one of the best toy lines of all time. DC Universe Classics. You hear people say DCUC. Probably the most beloved DC line of all time. They made Harry Potter figures, Dark Knight figures, and to this day, they still work with companies you know. A number of the Super 7 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Ultimates in the early ways, as I understand it, were sculpted by the Four Horsemen. We learned just at Toylanta, just happened to be doing a Google search, that the original NECA Mirage comic book Ninja Turtles and the Foot Clan figures, the Shredder and Foot Soldiers, that are incredibly expensive in the aftermarket right now, back in 2008, were sculpted by the Four Horsemen. One of the coolest moments at Toylanta was David got them to sign his in-box NECA original Mirage release. So they have likely sculpted something that you have in your collection. If you're like me, they've sculpted many things that you have in your collection. They are some of the highest level sculptors in the world. And they decided to start their own line. So they would partner with these companies kind of as an independent contractor. I think that's kind of ironic when you think about the origins of McFarlane Toys, but more specifically Image Comics, and the artists, the sculptors are the artists in the toy world in many cases, branching off to form their own independent company. That's exactly how Image came about, and Todd McFarlane and those guys left. Jim Lee, all those guys left and they formed Image Comics. This is a very similar story to form Four Horsemen Studios. So I thought it was ironic that they left McFarlane when they did that. You can be a fan of a sculptor just like you're a fan of an artist. And if you learn about who sculpts your favorite things, that's become pretty popular now because there's certain head sculpts in Marvel Legends that are sculpted by a certain person that people like. And so learning who sculpts some of your favorite toys will help you determine, do you like other toys, in my opinion. So they've sculpted a number of things in my collection, and so I've always been a fan of their work, but you didn't necessarily always know that they were the sculptors. So in 2005, so it was 1999 that they formed Four Horsemen Studios, and they were doing partnership work. In 2005 is when they started making their own properties. Now, there's a number of own properties. I'm going to refer several times to sourcehorsemen.com, SOURCEHORSEMEN. There's going to be a lot of links in the description below. I'm going to try to have links popping up if I mention videos. But sourcehorsemen.com is a pretty comprehensive website on the Four Horsemen Studios. You can also, they have a Wikipedia page you can learn about, but they've done a number of other independent lines that they created themselves before they got to Mythic Legions 10 years later. 2015, they decided they were going to do Mythic Legions, create their own IP. So all these, when I'm talking about their own properties, they're creating from scratch their own IP, certainly probably inspired by certain things and whatever, but they weren't doing a version of Spider-Man, they were creating their own character, which is what Mythic Legions is. So it started in 2015 via Kickstarter. So here we are in 2023. This line is not even 10 years old yet. This entire property is not even 10 years old yet. 2015 via Kickstarter, very successful Kickstarter. I think it was probably the most successful action figure Kickstarter at the time, maybe. And it kind of paved the way for a lot of other companies that have done action figure Kickstarters in recent years. Most recently, you've had Savage Crucible be very successful. You have the Biblical Adventures that just got funded, and he actually works with the Horsemen, get funded. Animal Warriors of the Kingdom has been successful several times. We also have action figure Kickstarters that never delivered their product. Cryptid, I think, was the name of it. So that kind of paved the way for companies that were coming. But at this point, here we are 8 years later, and there's over 200 releases, figures, accessory packs, whatever, probably pushing close to 300 at this point of releases in an 8-year period. And they didn't come out right when that Kickstarter launched, obviously. They've also just spun off, I guess that's the right word, or they've started another new property, Cosmic Legions. So Mythic Legions is sword and sorceries, shields, it's fantasy. Those of all that watch the channel know that fantasy is my number one deal. Lord of the Rings, if maybe you can see some of the Lord of the Rings stuff in the corner of the camera. Game of Thrones, my favorites, right? Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit are my number one fandom. My earliest memory is watching The Hobbit and having my older sister read The Hobbit to me, the old Rankin Bass animation one. And that's where Mythic Legions live. They're in the world of fantasy. Cosmic Legions, which is Wave 1, is imminent. It's probably in the next month or two. Going to come out, spring 2023. They are sci-fi, so in space. And often I find in the world of nerddom, you can be fantasy fan, you can be a sci-fi fan, you can be a comic book fan. One of those three probably is your dominant, whether fantasy, sci-fi, or comic book. So were you a fan of Spider-Man? Were you a fan of Lord of the Rings? Were you a fan of Star Wars? Right? Kind of the dividing. So Cosmic Legions, new sci-fi baseline that we'll talk more about here in the future, but it's about to come out. They also have a newer line called Figura Obscura, which has been a few figures out in that line. And that is their takes on existing characters. So they're not creating those characters. It's things like Santa or Krampus or the Headless Horseman. They're in Mythic Legion style, but it's the Four Horsemen's take on these characters that we know. That line usually just has 1 or 2 figures a year. I'm very hopeful we get things like the Easter Bunny. I'm very hopeful we get things like the Yeti or Bigfoot. But that's the kind of things that fall into Figura Obscura. So that just gives you an overview of what they're currently producing. Those 3 lines are their current properties. Like we said, 3 of the 4 Horsemen still work with 4 Horsemen Studios. You can meet them. We met 2 of them just the other day at Toy Atlanta. But let's talk about Mythic Legions themselves, because that's the line that's getting a lot of attention right now, that you've seen us cover a bunch because they just had the store out at Toy Atlanta at the booth. So they are larger than your standard Marvel Legend. I think they're probably closer to a 7-inch figure. I think they fit with 1/12 or 1/10 because it's fantasy. Now, like your human-based characters are probably going to be bigger than your Marvel Legends, if you're trying to fit them in. I don't know that that's the appropriate place to fit in like a Gladiator with your Spider-Man. But Thor probably looks a little more, fits in with them. But I think the Marvel Select probably fits a little bit better. But that's up to you. I don't really get too caught up on scale, so I'm not the best person to talk about it. These are all make-believe things. So how big is an orc? How big is a goblin? I don't know. How big is a man that's been mutated by a spider? I don't know. So I don't get too hung up on those. But they're in the 1/12, 1/10 range. So McFarlane, Diamond Select, probably closer to that size. But could probably fit with your Hasbro stuff. They've had about 20 waves released. Some waves are huge, like the first Kickstarter wave is very big. Some waves are much smaller. And they have 3 waves right now that have been solicited. We're going to talk about the way the pre-order process works, but they haven't been released. So that's kind of normal. We just had All-Star 5 just released in the last few weeks. We had the Trolls come out recently, and like an All-Star Troll wave that came out. So they've had several coming out, and Cosmic Legions Wave 1 is about to come out. So there's often a wave releasing every month or two, really. Depending on factory backups. And of course, with 2020 and everything that happened in 2020 and the pandemic, distribution and factories and stuff are still kind of getting back to what the new normal is. So you'll see as it comes out. Now, let's talk about the different types of figures, meaning categorizations. So there are certainly an entire world you can read about. You can go to Source Horseman, you can learn about the characters. There are main characters, there are heroes, there are villains, there are side characters, there are gods and overlords, and they all have bios and backstories, and you can read about Mythos, the world this takes place in, and learn all about these characters. So it's not just, here's an action figure, but there is story with it. I actually believe, I think there was a comic maybe in that original Kickstarter run. I actually think that they could make a graphic novel or a series of graphic novels based on this world, and it would do pretty well, especially with this core audience, working with Boom Publishing or somebody like that, where you only need to print 500 copies of something. I really think that would do well. But there is stories, and those have evolved. Like right now with the most recent Wave 3 of Cosmic Legions, Jeremy has written really detailed stories that are very interesting, kind of suck you in, and you get to remember what it was like when you were a little kid. And the first time you hear the story of Lion-O or the story of He-Man and you get sucked into it, and then you want the toy. The same thing can happen as an adult. The same thing can happen as an adult. And that is what this line really is. But so you've got factions, you've got, I don't know if it's races. So like you've got vampires, you've got humans, you've got goblins, you've got orcs, you've got elves. Wizards are coming here in a new wave. So the same things you hear in most of fantasy, but there's also mounts, there's horses, there's a moose, there's a centaur, there's ogres and trolls and all sorts of different things. But for this, I'm talking about specifically size, because we're going to get into, how do I buy these? Why are these so expensive? Because that seems to be the core question that people have, is why are these figures so expensive? How can you possibly afford? I go on eBay and they're $200 each. That's ridiculous. I don't see a place to buy them. We're going to get into all that. So let's talk about the different types of figures. There's a standard release. This is, to put in easy to understand terms, your Marvel Legend figure that includes a Build-A-Figure piece, which is right now a $24.99 price point at a Walmart, right? You get a Marvel Legends figure right now, you might get 1 or 2 hands, maybe an accessory, probably not anymore, and a Build-A-Figure piece, $25. That's your standard release from Hasbro for Marvel Legends. Standard release in Mythic Legions, it's a named character, it's going to have a bio, it's going to have all sorts of paint apps on it, it's going to be very unique, and it's going to have a ton of accessories, lots of weapons, possibly an alternate head, a helmeted head, an unhelmeted head. but lots of different accessories. That's a standard release figure. We'll talk more about all these and their price points in a minute. Then you have a Legion Builder, right? This is no different than the Army Builder figures that you get from Hasbro. Now, every once in a while, Marvel Legends has on Hasbro Pulse Army Builders that are $15 or $20. They're more bare, not as much paint, not as many accessories. Hasbro very rarely has those in stock, and when they put their Army Builders with their regular waves, they're the same $25 price, as we all know. Legion Builders and Mythic Legions are less expensive. They're usually, I don't know, 20-30% less expensive. They don't have as much paint, sometimes very little paint applications, but the sculpting is the same. And so you can look at their pauldrons or their shield and see all the sculpting details are there. They're just not painted. And they have fewer accessories. Not bare accessories, but fewer accessories. And they're not named. They're Orc Legion Builder, Goblin Legion Builder, instead of Vorthog, the Orc, right? They don't have a bio and all of that. They're a lower price point because they're made to Army build, and they're made for you to customize if you want to. You don't have to. They look great on the shelf by themselves, but you can customize, you can paint them. That's kind of what they're made for, and they're a lower cost figure, and they're usually easier to get, the Legion Builders, in the aftermarket. You have a deluxe figure. This could be a name figure, it could also be a builder, but it comes with a significant amount of accessories. It may have wings, multiple alternate heads, multiple weapon sets, sometimes interchangeable armor, interchangeable arms or feet, all sorts of different stuff. Usually it's in a double wide package, and it's a lot. So this would be comparable to when Marvel Legends does what they're doing right now, where they're doing their deluxe figures that are like a Build-A-Figure in a box, that are like in that $50 price point that Marvel Legends now tend to be for their deluxe figures, or a figure that comes with a motorcycle or something like that. That's probably akin to that, to put it in that scale. Then you have Ogre Scale, which are larger figures, usually around 8 to 10 inches. They're just bigger, and they're similar. Sometimes they're named, sometimes they're builders. They come with accessories, paint, so forth. They're just much bigger. This is, I don't have a great, it's when they put the Giant Man figure as a single pack release for Hasbro. When they sell their Build-A-Figures, they're similar. And Deluxe and Ogre Scale are similar price point as well. Then they have Trolls, the huge figures. They're much wider, much taller. The most expensive figure, lots of paint applications, limited accessories because they're just huge dudes, usually alternate hands on a weapon. But those are the different scales, I guess, of figures or types, because those are the price points. Then you also have horses and mounts. Those are kind of unique, so I'm not going to go too much into that. And they're new. They've just started releasing horse mounts over the last year or two. But they have that. Then also there are tribute figures. Tribute figures are typically a regular standard release at the standard release price point, but they are a tribute to something. They mostly have Masters of the Universe tribute figures. So I don't know if you can see up in the corner, but there are Motu tribute figures this is a He-Man figure. This is a Skeletor figure. They have their own name, their own bio. They live in mythos. But you can use the alternate parts and accessories to create a Mythic Legions version of Man-at-Arms, for instance. Those figures don't get re-released currently, and they get pretty expensive in the aftermarket. They release 2 of those a year. That's been their pattern for a while, 2 of those a year. There are also a couple Dungeons and Dragons. There's the Goblin that's a Dungeons and Dragons, and there's a War Duke Dungeons and Dragons tribute figure. His name's Rhaegar. He's very expensive. I would like to have him. He's very expensive. He's an older figure. So they do tribute figures from time to time. They also do tribute figures to people. And this is one of the coolest things about Four Horsemen Studios. So while we have all been complaining about all these other companies, NECA releasing 15 releases all at one time in a Target as exclusives, trying to get, or Hasbro continually raising the prices and lowering what they put in the box, or the plastic-free packaging, or all these things that companies do that frustrate us. The Four Horsemen Studios is very, very fan-friendly. They have tribute figures to podcasters. There's a recent set called the Furious Four that now have individual releases that are to people that do like a podcast and a YouTube video that they like. There's a tribute figure to Pixel Dan. There's a tribute figure to Jeremy Gerard, who was a super fan and now works for them and has done a number of content. You're going to hear me talk about Jeremy quite a bit. It's incredible the level of tributes that they do to their community. And that's a big thing about this, and we're going to talk more about it, is their community. So, those are the types of figures that they have. You are saying to me, well, all right, great, that's fine, that's all fine. A little bit of education, a little bit of history. But I want to buy them, but they're too expensive, Dub. How do I buy them? They're too expensive. Those prices that I saw you guys have at the show, I've never seen those prices. How do I buy these figures? Why are they so expensive? So let's talk about the way it works, purchasing Mythic Legions. And you really have truly 4 windows to buy them. Really 4. Your first window is the pre-release window. That's what I'm calling it. It's a pre-order, but I call it pre-release because you can only order it directly from the 4 Horsemen themselves. You go to Source Horsemen, it's actually Store Horsemen is where you buy these, but if you're at Source Horsemen, they'll have links. And you're buying it ahead of production, right? It's the model that, fortunately or unfortunately, we've all become relatively familiar with. And that is, this product is going up for order. It's not crowdfunded in the sense of it's going to get made. It's not a Kickstarter. These are figures that are going to get made, but they're going to make a number of them based on how many orders they get. You go and you pre-order and you say, I want these figures, and you pay up front for the figures and the shipping cost all at once. You pay up front. All right, here it is. 12 to 18 months, year to year and a half, depending on production cycle, you get your release. You all have heard me say, I just am tired of that model generally because so many companies are asking you to pay up front for their figures. And then when you're going to get them, who knows? I just got the Mezco 1989 Batman that I paid in full for 3.5 years ago. Nearly 3.5 years ago. And I just got it. And it had an estimated delivery date of like 9 months later. And it took 3.5 years. That gets old. That hurts you as a customer. And one of the things that I've had the most problem with most companies, and it's why I don't have a problem with 4 Horsemen doing this, is why should I do that for you? They don't give me a reason. So, we're currently Super 7, who I love. I have a lot of Super 7 stuff. If you order from them, up until the most recent G.I. Joe order, it's the first one that's different. If you order from them and say, I want these 4 Ninja Turtles in this wave, and they're $49 each, and I pay you $200 from Super 7. What do I get for that? As compared to ordering them from Big Bad Toy Store? Nothing. You don't get anything different. They're also going to be $200 on Big Bad Toy Store. Big Bad Toy Store is going to ship them to you cheaper. And you might get them first from Big Bad Toy Store because recently Super 7's been really slow with shipping. So why should I pay $200 up front if Big Bad Toy Store will let me pay when they come in? It's the same price. There is no benefit to me from ordering directly from Super 7. Now recently, in their most recent G.I. Joe wave, they're including an extra accessory pack if you order from them. It's not enough to get me to do it. I'm still going to order from Big Bad Toy Store. But that's the way it works. The difference with the 4 Horsemen, when you pre-order from them in this pre-release window, it is the cheapest it will ever be by a significant amount. By a significant amount. Not by $2. By a significant amount. So it's no different than what Mezco does or Super 7 does or when NECA has Turtles online, you got to pay in full. All these smaller companies do this. Hasbro has started to do this in some cases. Mattel has started to do this in some cases. This is what the toy industry is currently. It's always been this way with the 4 Horsemen. But the difference with the 4 Horsemen is you get them cheaper if you order it first. We're going to talk about the difference in price points when I finish going through everything. So the pros of pre-release ordering through the 4 Horsemen, it's the lowest cost you're going to possibly get, and you can get an all-in bundle that will make it even lower. And you're going to get them the fastest. Why? Because they have a street date on their retailers, and they don't lift that street date until they fulfill the orders that are ordered directly through them. They wouldn't even have them on their show table. We were just at a show. All Stars 5 Plus is out. They did not have them for sale there because they wanted to fulfill all their orders and release the street date on the retailers before they put them on their table. I think that's very honorable and a good thing to do. What are the cons? It can be a long wait. You've put money, you might put several $100s, and you're going to wait a year and a half. It's going to be a long wait with any of these, but it's a long wait without your money. And you have to pay in full up front. Like we said, I don't love that. Another challenge with the Horsemen sometimes is I think they use a Shopify site. I'm not sure if they're moving away from that. But the shipping can be weird. You can find that an all-in costs X, But if I get just 2 figures, the shipping costs more than all in. It can be weird, and I think that's the nature of a Shopify system sometimes. So shipping sometimes can be more expensive than you want it to be. You got to play with it. So the second way that you can order these figures is through retail released. You can both pre-order and buy on release from the approved retail partners of the Four Horsemen. You can go to Source Horsemen, you click on About Us, and you click on Approved Retailers, and you're going to find a list of approved retailers. We're going to talk about that a couple times. The approved retailers means that they are in business with the Four Horsemen. They get distributed figures from the Four Horsemen, and they are authorized to sell them at a retail price. They have a suggested retail price that they sell at. That prevents the price from going up. That means there is a retail. It's not just the aftermarket. Now, the challenge is that retail isn't comic book stores. Maybe there'll be a few we'll talk about. But it's mostly online presence. It's mostly online presence. So you're not going to see them at Walmart. You're not going to see them at Target. Maybe one day. I don't know what their aspirations are. But you're not going to. So you got to pay attention to the approved retailers. Some you've definitely heard of. Big Bad Toy Store you've heard of. I think you've probably heard of Nerdzoic. He does a great job of his YouTube channel has grown a lot. He's got a lot of stuff, and he carries Mythic Legions. But there probably are quite a few that you have not heard of, companies that I have done business with. So you have a company like Empire Toy Shop, Mallfish Collectibles. I think there's Merlin's Toys, Toyco. All of those companies I have bought from. You have Horsehead Collectibles. I haven't bought from Horsehead Toys, but again, you go check the thing and you find the one that works for you. But there are also local shops like Needless Toys, that's in North Carolina, Dallas Vintage Toys in Dallas, Toy Department in Ohio, Top Dog here in Georgia, most recently Toy Federation in Greenville, South Carolina, that you're going to see in a video already if you haven't seen it yet. And those are local shops. So it's very possible that you're close to a local shop that will have them hanging on a peg at this retailer price. So you got to pay attention to that list. You got to pay attention to that list. The suggested retail price is higher than the pre-release price, but it's still lower than aftermarket. Plus, if you have a shop near you, you can go look at it, decide if you want it. So the pros, you don't have to put money up front. Now, most of those you can also pre-order from. So if you want to pre-order, but you don't want to put the money up front with the Four Horsemen, you can do it at the other places. It's going to be more expensive, but you can do it. You have to look through the different things. Some of these stores have free shipping. Some of these stores have fixed price shipping, like Big Bad Toy Store, $4. Some of them don't charge tax in your state. Some of them do. Some of them let you pre-order with no money down. Some of them let you pre-order with a $1 deposit. Some of them you still have to pay in full for a pre-order. So I don't know that you should pre-order from them. You should just pre-order from the Horsemen. But you got to see what works for you and what works for your budget. We talked about that a lot recently on our Monday Motivation videos. What works for your spending, your budget, your collecting habits. So you got to check the stores and see. You also can wait for the release usually. Almost all of these stores, especially Big Bad Toy Store, will have the figures at least for a couple days once they fully release. They won't sell out. And then you can look at reviews. You can check out Dork Layer or Toy Bro or Pixel Den or whoever may do a review on these figures and see if you like it. And then decide if you want to buy it. You got to go quick because some of the more popular ones will sell out pretty fast. But you can wait. The cons, more expensive. It's more expensive than when you buy them directly from the Horsemen. And you get them slower. You're just going to get them slower because like we talked about that, there's a street date. So a third way you can get them is back to getting them directly from the Four Horsemen. Now this, you got to figure out if it works for you. You can see them at a convention like we just did at Toylanta. If they have a booth and they're selling, they're going to be selling them similar to that pre-release price, and they're going to have a couple dollars in there for tax. So a thing that was $37 pre-release was $40, but there was no tax. $27 was $30, but no tax. So there's a couple dollars in there for tax, cost of the booth and such, but it's still cheaper than the suggested retail price at a retailer. So if you happen to see them at a booth, that's a great way to buy them because now I see them in person, I can decide if I want them, and they're a lower cost. You can also, sometimes they have what's called an in-stock sale. You'll hear it referred to as ISS, an in-stock sale. This is buying direct from the Horsemen, stock that they are ready to ship right away. Figura Obscura basically always sells as in-stock sales. It's a surprise release. Here it is. You buy it, it ships right away. They were doing more in-stock sales during the COVID time where they weren't going to shows. And so every wave that would come out, as soon as they filled their orders and the retailer order was released, they'd have an in-stock sale. It would be challenging. It would be like the Mezco pre-order days where you've got an hour and things get really complicated and really hard and you can only order one and it's not easy to get what you want, but you can get them. They haven't done as many in-stock sales since they've been back out at shows because that stock is there in person for you to see. But you pay attention, you can get them from an in-stock sale. That's after release with Four Horsemen. You're still getting that lower price. From there, you go aftermarket. You go eBay, Mercari, Facebook groups, at a con, at a booth that isn't the Four Horsemen booth. You're going to pay a lot for those. You're going to pay the highest price here, just like any other toy. If you wait for something to be sold out at all the traditional outlets and you go to the aftermarket, you're going to pay a lot. It's the way the aftermarket works. If you're going to go aftermarket, if that's what you're going to do, I will highly recommend, if you're interested in this line at all, first of all, join the Mythic Legions Cabal Facebook group. Mythic Legions Cabal, C-A-B-A-L, Facebook group. You can say Big Dub invited you. If you are friends with me on Facebook, ask me, hey, what's the name of that group? I'll send you an invite. Walter and the crew that runs the Cabal does an awesome job. It's the best Facebook group that there is in the action figure community. Doesn't mean there's not still negativity and toxicity. There's that in every Facebook group of anything. But it is very, very fan-friendly, very open and welcoming. Natalie and Kaya are both in that group, if that tells you anything. And they are not in, Kaya's not in any other toy group, but I trust that she can be in that group. So I would highly recommend the Mythic Legions Cabal. If you want aftermarket, if there's a figure you gotta have that's only available aftermarket, go to the Cabal and do an in search of post, ISO. Do an in search of and say, I want Atlas. I don't care if he's complete or I need him sealed in the box. I'm willing to pay $200 or I'm willing to trade this. Does anybody have it? Just list specifically what you're looking for. People help out people in that group. Doesn't mean you'll get it at the price you want, but people tend to help out people in that group. Now, if you're international, if you're an international customer, everything I just said is still true for you. Most of those outlets will ship to you internationally. Most of them will. The Horsemen will ship to you internationally. But it can be more expensive. Obviously, you've got customs, you've got international shipping. So if you go back to the approved retailers list, there is an international approved retailers list by country. So if you're in Italy, it shows you where you can get it. If you're in England, it shows you where you can get it from. If you're in Australia, it shows you where you can get it from. And therefore, you can find things that are hopefully less burdensome to get it to you. So definitely, Source Horseman, approved retailers list. I'll try to make sure to link that in the description as well. And figure out what works for you in your country. Let's talk about exclusives. They do have exclusives, but the way they handle exclusives, I am just a big fan of. They have several exclusives a year. Usually they have the PowerCon pre-release exclusives, which means they're going to have them at PowerCon first. These are usually the Motu tributes. And then they're going to be in a general release the next year. Nothing different about them. You can just get them first at a convention. They will have Legions Con exclusive figures. Legions Con is, as you can imagine, the Mythic Legions convention. It happens in New Jersey in November. We will be there. I think a number of my friends will be there. And I encourage you to be there. It's coming up. It's in November. Certainly go reserve your hotel because it's selling out. They will have Legions Con exclusive figures. Those exclusive figures will also get a general release later. But they will be a couple parts that are exclusive. So this year's Legions Con figures was the Furious 4 2-pack that had an exclusive cat head and tail. They released those figures as single releases, so the 2-pack was exclusive, and the cat head and tail was exclusive. Everything else you could just buy as a general release later. The Unknown one, same thing. A deluxe figure, I think there was a skull head. That was the exclusive part of it. So you can still get the figure if you want it. You just might miss a minor accessory. So there is still some exclusivity, some box variants, some minor accessory difference. But if you want the figure, you can still get it. I very much appreciate that. I can't think of any true exclusives at a show that are impossible to get for the Four Horsemen. So, exclusives do exist. Now, most people see this line as being expensive because they only see it in the aftermarket. They only see eBay or Facebook groups, or they see them at booths. They don't see them in those channels we just talked about, in the pre-release channel, in the retailer channel, in the in-stock sale channel. Well, all toys are expensive in the aftermarket that people want to collect. If there's not high demand, they're not, but that's the way supply and demand works. So how do I do this? This is a small company, but it has a niche, passionate fan base, and it's growing. You see how many people at Toyland got into Mythic Legions. If you're watching this, you're probably thinking about getting into Mythic Legions. It's growing. So as it grows, demand increases. They'll increase supply as demand increases, but only on new stuff. They can't go back and make the stuff they already made 7 years ago. So, how do you do this? I would not advise looking backwards. Don't try to be a completist of this line. It will cost you a lot of money, and you probably will never do it. They have things like test shots that are highly limited that they sell. To be a completist of this line, that can be the only thing you collect, and you have to have a lot of money. It's just going to be too much of a challenge. So look forward. Don't look backwards. One good thing about looking forward is, like we talked about, they listen to their fans, they pay tribute to their fans. They have All-Star Wave every year. They have voting for the All-Star Wave every year. So the All-Star Wave, this most recently was All-Stars 5 that just came out. It had several new figures and several re-released figures that were $300 a year ago. And now you can buy. You could have bought for $37. Now you can buy for about $50. But they were $300 a year ago. How did they determine what figures to re-release? They vote. They hold All-Star voting. All-Star voting is about to begin right now. Go into the Mythic Legions Cabal, follow the Four Horsemen's Facebook page, Instagram page, and you'll see All-Star voting begins. And then the fans vote on what figures they want to see get re-released. How cool is that? You don't have to hope that they re-release Fing Fang Foom. You can vote. Enough people vote, it gets re-released in an All-Star Wave. There's usually some very minor changes, very minor, slightly different paints is usually what it is, just to distinguish it a little bit. But it's the same figure, and you can get it not at the aftermarket price. So vote for your All-Star Waves. Also, if you're interested in the Four Horsemen Studios and you have to be a completist, consider Cosmic Legions. Wave 1 isn't out yet. Wave 1 is about to come out. Wave 2 was solicited a few months back. Wave 3 is being solicited right now. You can buy them at the pre-release price right now if you're watching this video as it aired in April 2023. So don't look backwards. Look forwards. There are currently figures out that you can get. There's going to be a lot more figures to come. And then over time, you may get an extra of a figure that you held on to and now it's worth something and you can trade to somebody else. But all of this, you say, Mythic Legions are too expensive. Let's talk about the money. As you all know, you watch me, I'm very interested in the finance and the business side of the toy industry. So let's talk about the money. Currently, right now, the Cosmic Legions Wave 3 is up for pre-release. You go to Source Horseman, you click to Store Horseman, Cosmic Legions. Wave 3 is up right now. You can pre-order it at the cheapest price possible. Let's talk about it. A standard figure, $37 right now. That's the price. A deluxe figure is $48. A ogre scale is $65. Those are the three scales they have in this wave. $37 standard, $48 deluxe, $65 ogre. There are 6 total figures in this wave. 4 standard, 1 deluxe, 1 ogre. If you bought them all individually from the Horsemen, it'd be $261 for those 6 figures. If you buy them at the all-in price, meaning I want everything that comes in Wave 3, that price is $235. It's less than $40 a figure for the 6 figures. $235 for the all-in versus $261 individually. So just right away, the price is already discounted from the retail, and you get an even bigger discount if you buy the all-in. Let's talk about what those prices will probably be on Big Bad Toy Store once April ends and they start to go up for the retailer release. We can look at Cosmic Legions Wave 1 and make a decent enough guess. This is the retailer pricing on Big Bad Toy Store and most of those places I listed for Cosmic Legions Wave 1. A standard figure, $50 on Big Bad Toy Store. Standard figure, right now, if you pre-order it from the Horseman, $37, retail release, $50. Deluxe figure, $48 from the Horseman, retail release, $60. Ogre scale, $65 from the Horseman, ogre scale, $80 from Big Bad Toy Store. So to get the same 6 figures, I anticipate will cost $340 from Big Bad Toy Store versus $235 directly from the Horseman. So when I say, why am I okay that the Horsemen do it, and it frustrates me with Super 7 or NECA or Mezco, that's why. Because the $340 Big Bad Toy Store price is the same price from Super 7, but with the Horsemen, it is almost a third cheaper to order directly for them. $235 versus $340. It's a big difference. So when you see them on Big Bad Toy Store, are they more expensive? Yeah. But you could have got them cheaper, but you got to look forwards and not backwards. Now let's talk about the aftermarket. I went to eBay. I looked up some recent figures in this same scale. So remember, let's do standard figure first. Right now, standard figure, $37 from the Horseman, $50 from a retailer. Malleus. Malleus is a recent skeleton that was an all-star release, so it's the second time he's been out. So his price has probably crashed in the aftermarket as much as it's going to. And it was available on Big Bad Toy Store for like a year after release. Currently on eBay, $70 and up for Malleus. So again, $37, not bad. $50, not great, but not bad. $70, and he's a cheap standard release figure. And that $70 is what most of the people are seeing when they say, why is it so expensive? So it's almost doubled in price in a year. In just a year. Arethyr, a deluxe figure, one of the most recent, really amazing deluxe releases. He's one of the Four Horsemen. Currently, they're releasing the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse in the line. He's a big winged, devil head demon dude. Deluxe figure. $48 from the Horsemen, what deluxe figures are today. $60 from Big Bad Toy Store. He's sell $80 and up, and only going to go up. Ogre Scale, $65 from the Horsemen. $80 from Big Bad Toy Store. Archimedes is like a Cyclops ogre, pretty recent release. A named ogre in recent years. $115 and up. So you see, if you wait for the aftermarket, it's bad. It's bad. So how do I buy them? Usually I just do the all-in. Cosmic Wave 3, I've done the all-in. The most recent Necronominus wave of Mythic Legions, I just did the all-in. I do the all-in. And then if I want extras, then maybe I'll do the retail release, or I'll wait to see them at a show or an in-stock sale. But I usually just do the all-in. And then I can decide, do I want all these? Do I want to trade some? Whatever. Because it's so much cheaper than any other way. I know plenty of people do 2 all-ins so that they have one to save to trade later or for extra parts. Do I pre-order on Big Bad Toy Store or through Mallfish or through Empire Toy Shop or through Toyco or through Merlin? Yeah, I do that too. Sometimes I want to hold a couple extras on one of those sites because I worry it may sell out. And I want to make sure I have 2 or 3. Sometimes I'll just order the extras directly from the Horseman at the time. It just depends. But I am a fan of just ordering the all-in first and then figuring out the rest later. I want to save that money. So I hope that gives you an idea of the difference in pricing. Any toy line is expensive in the aftermarket. You can't compare the Marvel Legends that you're seeing today at Walmart or that have been out for a year that are clearanced to a Marvel Legend from 5 years ago. And be like, oh, Marvel Legends are expensive. Well, if you only look on eBay, yeah. The difference in Mythic Legions, they don't have peg warmers. They don't exist in the line. Once a thing is sold out, it goes up in value. So every single Mythic Legions you look for is expensive if it's sold out. Why? Because it's rare. It's supply and demand. There may be 5 or 10,000 of these made, and there's probably 100,000 or 500,000 of the Marvel Legend made. So the fewer that are made, the harder it is going to be to get them. I would like the Spider-Man Retro Card Green Goblin figure. I probably used to own that. I probably bought it on clearance for like $12 at Walmart like 2 years ago. I look on eBay right now, I can't buy that figure for under $100. Why do I want it? Because I have Mafex Spider-Man figures and I need villains for them to fight in pictures. And I like the retro carded animation style ones. I'm not going to pay $100 for it. But that's no different than looking at that's 5 times what it cost when it came out, just 2 years ago. If you go find a Mythic Legion, I bet it won't be 5 times what it cost 2 years ago. Now, 3, 4 years ago, certainly. 2 years ago, probably not. You probably ought to get a little bit better than that. So, you have to analyze your whole understanding of the toy industry before you decide whether this is or is not too expensive for you. Now, if you say, well, $37, I just can't do that in my budget right now. You don't need to buy them. That's fine, right? That's an educated, wise decision that you're making with your finances. Toys are not for everybody. $37 toys aren't for everybody. Legion builders come in less. They come in 30, 25 to 30 bucks, by the way. There's not any in the Cosmic Legions right now, so it's hard to give you that price point, but that's where they are. And if you think about the big brands, Marvel Legends, G.I. Joe Classified, WWE Ultimates, Star Wars Black Series, every single one of them have a figure on a shelf right now at a Walmart that's between 35 and 50 bucks. Every one of them. Every single one of them. Some of those Star Wars Boba Fett's are 37 bucks, 40 bucks. WWE Ultimates are $34 and up, I think. You get a Snake Eyes and a Timber, it's like 40 bucks for G.I. Joe. They all are at this price point. It's a very competitive price point. Is it what we all want to play for toys? Probably not. We want the days of $14.99 back, $9.99. That isn't where the economy is anymore. So it's all competitive, but you just have to be educated and pay attention to when it's going on sale and decide, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to go all in, I'm going to save that money, and in a year, I don't owe anything, and it shows up at my door, and I'm a happy guy. That just happened to me with All Stars 5. Wonderful. It is a fun line. I want to go back to this. The Mythic Legions Cabal, the community, the different customizing communities that are out there. There are incredible customizers. These figures are made pop and swappable. What does that mean? Well, it means almost the arms, the shoulder pads, the armor, the feet, the hands, the heads, the chest plates, all sorts of stuff pops off and then can pop onto another figure. So you can easily pop and swap and create your own character. We're about to do a pop and swap challenge as a family. Natalie, Kaya, and I are going to do a challenge. You're going to see that in a series of videos coming up and just in the next couple months, where we're going to do a pop and swap challenge and we're going to see who wins, who makes the coolest character. We're going to write a bio and everything. That's playing with toys. This is an adult line to play with. I almost said adult toy line. A line of toys made for adults to play, like we did when we were little. We all have so much nostalgia. And I hear people say, well, I'm not into Mythic Legions because I don't have any nostalgia for that. I have nostalgia for Power Rangers or Spider-Man or whatever. I don't have nostalgia for that. They're new. I don't know anything about those characters. I also have nostalgia for sitting on the floor with toys all over the place and playing with them. And that's what you get to do with this line as an adult, right? You get to play with them. They, as adults making these toys, they're creating out of their minds this own universe, and they're playing with them. The community is great. The guys that work for there, you can meet, you can interact with on social media. Jeremy on his Mythic Customs YouTube channel will have pop and swap days and show you. They just did one on a Mythic Conversation where he and Joe took all sorts of Cosmic Legions and created new characters. And people will be in the chat and say, hey, take a head off this one and an arm off this one and put that together and show it to me. And they do it. And he showed a picture of what it was like when it was done. And it looked like our toy room when we were kids. Stuff everywhere. You can still have nostalgia for that, for playing with that toy line as a kid. And you get in the Mythic Legions Cabal and talk to Walter and meet Walter, and he'll help you learn all that there is to know. There are so many cool people, so many cool ways to do this in this community. It can get expensive. Don't be a completist. Don't go backwards. Look forwards. Pick a faction you like, or pick a species you like. I like the goblins. I like the goblins. I want to get custom goblins and all the goblins they release because, again, Lord of the Rings. And you can get them all if you want to. If you try to get all of Mythic Legions, that's going to be costly. My advice, if you're interested in this line, if you happen to be near a show, they're going to be at Heroes Con in Charlotte coming up. You can look on Source Horseman. They have all the shows they're going to. Find a show. Go see them in person. Shake Jeremy's hand. Shake Joe's hand. Shake Cornboy's hand. Shake the Horseman's hand. Talk to them about the product. Look at one. Maybe you're not into mythical stuff, but you like Greek mythology. Well, they have things that look like Spartans or gladiators or barbarians. They have human characters. That's what Seth is into. He doesn't want as much of the vampires or those kinds of things. Pick something that looks cool. Buy it. Buy a Legion builder for $30 at their table. Take it home and compare it to the $30 Marvel Legend you have, or the $25 Marvel Legend you have. See which one you like more. And if you like it, pre-order going forward. Buy stuff that's in stock at the retailers. Go to Empire Toy Shop and buy a mystery box when he puts those up. We like doing that as well. Play with it, see if you like it. Again, the Source Horseman site is great. Jeremy Gerard, who you've heard me say many times, I think he's their head of marketing and PR. Sorry, Jeremy, if that's not your right title, but he does so much to promote this community. And he was a fan first. He has one of the first, probably the first, customizing YouTube channel about Mythic Legions. And there's a number of resources. An FAQ for I'm new to Mythic Legions, how do I start doing this line? Where do I buy these from? How does this all work? Check those out. I'm going to have the links in the description below. I'll probably flash screenshots of that stuff up there. I also want to shout out Dork Lair YouTube channel and Jeremy's Mythic Customs YouTube channel. Both of them have done videos just like this long before me. But there were just so many questions and comments in my feed that I wanted to try to answer them. So I hope this was a helpful video. I hope it's kind of evergreen. Maybe you're watching this 2 or 3 years in the future and saying, I would like to collect Mythic Legions. How do I do it? Hopefully this information is still valid. But that community does a lot for its people. It did a lot for our family just recently. They spent, the employees of the company spent an hour talking to Kaya about what it's like making toys and painting and what's the best way to do it and how do you explore your creativity and what is it like doing this as a career. They took time with her. And that means a lot to me. So I wanted to do this for them. Every Mythic Legion I have here, I have paid for. Every one of them. And unless it was a gift from a friend. But it's nothing sponsored, nothing given by the studio. This is entirely a line that I love, that we share. And you don't see as much of it in the channel because they're not hanging in a Walmart. And a lot of what we do on these channels is toy hunt. And you don't see Mythic Legions on a toy hunt. You have to be educated and just get them as they come in. But I'm going to try to do a better job of showing off our Mythic Legions collection and really documenting our customizing. We're going to do this pop and swap challenge. We're all going to try to customize our very first action figure. And I think that's going to be fun to do together. I think you're going to enjoy seeing that in the coming weeks. So all of those things mean a lot to me as an adult who wants to play with toys. And I think it's the best community to play with toys. So shout out to all the folks at the Four Horsemen Studios, the Mythic Legions Cabal. If you have questions, leave it in the comments. Message me on Instagram, message me on Facebook. I'll try to connect you to the right thing. If anybody, Jeremy or any of my friends that know a lot about Mythic Legions are watching this, put a comment down below so people can comment to you as well. And I hope that this video gets viewership and that people learn what they need to learn from this video. I did my best. Hopefully you see that it's a great community. It's a great toy line that I'm passionate about. And I'm very excited for Cosmic Legions. Again, if you got to be a completist, Cosmic Legions Wave 1, you can still pre-order all of those on all those most of those retailers. I know on Big Bad Toy Store you can. And you can be a completist of Cosmic Legions. And there's the Cosmic Legion Cabal if you want to join that. So thanks for watching. I hope this was informative, educational, and helpful. And until next time, grab your favorite Mythic Legion, and they may have some pointy bits, so just do it lightly. But, give it a squeeze.